Well, hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to a brand new ministry here at Mobberly Baptist Church in Longview, Texas. This is the Empower and Equip podcast. And we're really excited about this. We're going to have seasons and episodes. This is the very first one of the fall season of 2023. I wanted to just tell you a little bit. What is the Empower and Equip podcast about? Obviously, we want to think about the two words, empower and equip. And when we look those words up, we find that empower really means to help someone be stronger and confident. And when we think about our walk with Christ or our marriage or how we are as a parent or how we are with neighbors or whatever it may be in really our spiritual life and life in general, we want to help everyone be stronger and confident. And then you think about the word equip, and it really means to supply necessary items for really a particular purpose. And our purpose is to honor God with our life and give Him glory. And so what we wanted to do is put those two things together and help you as the listener have some tools to really excel in life and in your spiritual life and really grow. That's a big word here at Mobberly. We want people to grow in their walk with Christ. And so we're excited about kicking off this episode. We do have special guest hosts with us every day. By the way, I'm Brandon Watson. I'm the Connect pastor here, and I'm the host of the podcast. And we have Keri Montgomery as our special guest co-host today. And Keri is our minister to preschool families and kids. So a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. Since we're talking really about marriage this first episode, you can even include Russ in this conversation.
Russ is my best friend. He's been my best friend for about 30 years. We've been married for 26. We have 3 adultish daughters, 17, 20, and closer to 23. We grew up here. Our families knew each other, and but we have just celebrated 26 years, getting closer to 27 years of marriage.
That's it. That's awesome. Also, every week we'll have special guests that are going to come in and help us talk about. And this week we have Andrew and Amy Hébert. No, I'm just kidding. This is Andrew and Amy Hébert. And Andrew, I had to do that because you've said that your name has been kind of butchered multiple times, hasn't it?
For my entire life. But I will say in East Texas, there are more people who can pronounce my last name the correct way. And I think it's because we're so close to Louisiana.
Yeah.
So a lot of people here know Héberts, or even there are Héberts in East Texas who live here. So it's a little bit more familiar name.
Yeah. Well, Andrew is our lead pastor here at Mobberly Baptist and his wife, Amy. So tell us a little bit about y'all and being married and how many years you've been married, and tell us a little bit about your family.
Being married is wonderful.
All right. Well, good.
It's the best. We've been married for 16 years, going on 17. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is 15, then we have a 13-year-old, we have a 10-year-old, and we have an 8-year-old. So we're not quite adultish, we're middle-ish.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we feel like we're in our 60s.
A lot of energy at home.
Lots of energy.
So much energy at our home.
And if our 4th child was the firstborn, we would probably have an only child. So all the energy was stored up in that last ball of energy there named Brooklyn. So we love them all, and she is keeping things very fresh and energetic at home.
Well, our topic today, we're going to really talk about a weekly marriage conversation that we're going to have. You know, 2023 here at Mobberly has been about what we call the Home Front initiative, where we have a focus in on our home, whether it be marriage, family, being really discipleship in the home, several things that we've been really emphasizing this year. And it's been a great year. We did a lot on family devotions, really having a time together, a weekly family devotion. Then, we talked about discipleship in the home, and I know that y'all talked about that with us a little bit as well. But we're now moving into an emphasis on marriage here in August, September, October, and through the end of the year. And so we're going to talk about this weekly marriage conversation. And Andrew, you brought these, and by the way, congratulations on 1 year.
Thank
being
you.
with us here at
you.
Mobberly, both of y'all, the whole family. But you brought these questions with you, and you guys have been doing these for some time. Tell us about how you got the questions.
Yeah, so actually back in 2020, I purchased a marriage journal, I think right around Valentine's Day. And this was just really a tool for our own marriage, just to deepen and invest more. And so the journal, asked several questions having to do with your long-term goals as a couple. What do you want to be doing in 5 years and 10 years and so forth. But kind of embedded in that journal was a series of questions that you ask each other every single week. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I got introduced to these 8 questions that we have taken my day off, our Sabbath day, where we pull back and rest, and as a family, we have for now 3 years used this set of questions as really an opportunity to talk about the things that really matter most. And so there's 8 of them. And it has been so helpful in our own marriage that when I came to Mobberly and really encouraged us to focus on the health of our families and our marriages in this first year, I thought, this is something I want to share with the church family. I want to encourage couples to commit to do this. If they'll commit to do it for once a week, for 12 weeks, that's 3 months. 3 months is enough to form a habit. I think people will see the value of this, the benefit for the health of the relationship and the friendship in marriage.
Well, super. And we've got a sample of this. I think our church will be getting a copy of these. Also, these questions will be available on our website, which will be mobberly.org /empower and equip. Or empower equipped. That's all going to be one word. So if you want to download the questions, you can get those there. So, Keri, you and Russ been apart? Have y'all tried some of these questions?
We have, and I like to talk, but only to a certain amount of people, a few people. So one of the things that I've been wondering is, typically, how long does it take y'all to go through the 8 questions? Because when we did it for the first time, maybe I had a lot of words stored up, but it was almost like an hour and a half for us to get through 8 questions.
It depends on the week, really. And you'll see once we talk through the questions, it kind of depends on what's going on in the week and where we are spiritually, where we are relationally. So it can be as fast as 10 minutes. It could go, 30 minutes, an hour. I mean, a lot of times we'll do this while we're taking a walk or while we're, going to get coffee. So we'll ask and talk about the questions. And as we're talking, it might veer to part of the question and we might focus on that for a while and then come back. So it really just depends on the week. And I would say there's no right or wrong way because some people are more talkative than others, and that's okay.
Do you guys, obviously you do this, you have a set time that y'all do that. Have there ever been times that you're like, oh, this is probably not a good time to go through the questions? Because timing's important, right?
Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, and we have not always done it on Fridays. There have been even times, this last week, for instance, the way our schedule worked, we ended up doing it at a different time of the week. But I would say in general, if you're at a point in your marriage or in a particular week where you're having maybe some conflict or maybe some friction in the conversation, it's okay to put a pin in the conversation and say, we're going to come back to this later. And there have been times in our marriage where we've done that, where we've just said, okay, we're kind of, we're on edge, we're frustrated with each other. this is not going in a healthy direction. We just need to take a break. And sometimes it's even been, let's go walk separately. You know, like I'm going to take a lap around the neighborhood and we might pick this up later or tomorrow. So it's okay to just say, it doesn't all have to be done right this moment. And sometimes it's healthier to just press pause and come back to it when you can have that conversation in a healthier way.
Okay.
The goal is not the questions. The goal is the relational connection that we have. And so the connection comes as we talk about those things. But obviously, like Andrew said, if there's something extra that's going on, that can dictate how we go through that or when, or, you know, if we get to a point where we really need to just take a break, that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's what you just said is very important, because we can go through these as a checklist. Mm-hmm. We could go through this as, okay, let's do this, let's go through them, and we miss the biggest connection part of it all, and what we really want to do in sharing with each other, and also listening. I mean, you really have to get into a mode where you're not like thinking about everything that you're going to say, and you're being intentional about what you're going to what you want to hear and what you know, and I think there's a difference between hearing and listening. So
let me jump in real quick.
Yeah,
I just remembered something. When we first got married, I remember somebody giving me advice that I should act like Russ is a book, and every day I should work to turn a page and find and discover something new about him. So these have been a very practical way for me to just turn the page of my best friend and see what's going on in his heart and what's going on in his life.
Definitely.
Well, let's jump in, and we want to get hopefully through question 4 today on this first episode, because we want to talk about these. And so, Keri, why don't you introduce the very first question in this weekly marriage conversation?
Yes. So the first question is, what brought you joy this week? In my mind, this starts at very surface level, but it's a nice, gentle way to start a conversation. So have there been any surprises as y'all have asked each other these questions? Anything that just was kind of shocking? Or like, I didn't know that. Where have I been? Why didn't I know that?
I would say, I don't know that I can think of anything particularly shocking off the top of my head, but I will say, you know, it is fun to see sometimes there's a big moment that's joyful. You know, there will be something really great that Andrew will share that this brought him joy, and maybe I saw it, and maybe it's something that, you know, would be very visible. But then there's other things that, you know, maybe I didn't see, or maybe it was a special moment with the kids, or maybe it was a special moment with someone at the church that I didn't see. And so it's really enjoyable to just hear the kinds of things that bring him joy. Mm-hmm. Because it varies in seasons of life. So I think it does also speak to where we are in our own walk with the Lord, you know, just what's bringing us joy, what's bringing us fulfillment.
I think it's helped us both to cultivate gratitude more intentionally as well. I'm not going to lie. There have been weeks where I have to sit and think, what did bring me joy? You know, maybe it's been a difficult week and I can think of all kinds of hard things, but I'm having a hard time thinking of the things that brought me joy. And that's not a bad thing. It's okay when you're asked that question to have to sit and think about it for a minute and kind of recount the week. But it's almost developing a habit or a discipline of recognizing, even if it's a small thing, the blessings that God brings to your life,
right.
You know, and just cultivating that attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. Like catching a 9-pound bass.
Like catching a 9-pound bass. I didn't catch that.
I know.
Which one of us did? Pastor Brandon.
I can't bear to say it, but okay, we're gonna move on. But you know, I would say this too, and I would ask, you know, and you know, Claire and I have gone through these questions multiple times as well. How do you try to get out of some of the repetitive answers? You know, sometimes it's like, you know, when you said I have to sit and think, sometimes it's easy just to lean on a repetitive answer. And, you know, what could be the dangers of that but there are things that give us repetitive joy. You know, would you add anything to that?
I think a good follow-up question to this, and really a lot of the questions, is, well, why did that bring you joy? Because if you have a repetitive answer, then why is that continuing to bring you joy? Yeah. And that may make you think a little bit more deeply about, well, because this is a consistent source of joy. Or it may make you realize, well, I'm really not looking around for anything else that I'm joyful about. And maybe it's a prompt actually to look a little harder.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You have to turn into the 3-year-old. Why?
Right.
You know, okay.
Yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good thing. The other thing is it's okay if it's repetitive.
Yes.
You know, you don't have to feel guilt. You don't have to.
Yeah.
This is a tool, and it's not meant to be a checklist. It's not meant to be something that brings guilt or anything like that. But just to say, sometimes there are things that bring repetitive joys. Sometimes there are repetitive prayer requests. Sometimes there are repetitive difficulties, and that's true to life, because sometimes you go through those seasons. You know, you might go through a very dry spell in your walk with God. That's okay. Yeah. You know, you can't live on the mountaintop. Sometimes you're walking through the valley, and it's okay to navigate those things together. But I think, Amy, that's a great word, just to ask the follow-up question.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Why? And it does kind of force you to think a little bit more. The other thing is, sometimes I realize how superficial some of the things that bring me joy can be.
Yeah.
Amy, you know, her joy things are always like very spiritual and, you know, godly. And sometimes I'm, you know, mine is like Astros won, you know, but actually it is kind of an interesting exercise to realize what are the types of things that bring me joy. Is it the thing that matters really most in my life? Is it the relationships that I have in my life? You know, those types of things, or is it more superficial types of things? So it's, in some ways, it's kind of revealing how we answer that question at times.
Well, cool. Let's go into question number 2. What was hard or challenging for you this week? You know, how do you really mentally approach this question? You know, I mean, it could, like several of these questions, could go a lot of different ways. But whenever you ask this question, what's some of the things that you're thinking through as you process how to answer it?
You want to answer that? I don't know. I need to think about that for a minute. I mean, this is really just an opportunity not to have a gripe session. Yeah. You know, that's not the purpose of the question, but right. just to be realistic about our life and the great moments that we've had in the last week, but also what's been difficult. You know, what has been a struggle. In my case, it might be, you know, I had this just tough issue to think through at work, or maybe there was a conversation that was kind of negative that hurt my feelings. Yeah. And this is an opportunity to just talk with my best friend about that. Yeah. You know, and just share like, hey, this was a really hard conversation I had. Yeah. And my feelings were hurt, and I don't really have an outlet, you know, to talk with anybody, but I want to share it with you. And that gives Amy an opportunity to encourage me or pray for me or give me, you know, a different perspective. Or a lot of times she's very good at just listening and just kind of letting me offload some stuff. So that's not turning to Amy as a counselor in a formal sense, but it is an opportunity to help bear one another's burdens and to be able to, you know, Amy is a safe outlet for me to share sometimes some frustrations that I might be feeling that I don't necessarily have a safe outlet elsewhere to share with. I have good friends that I can share that with. You know, sometimes I can share that with fellow staff, team members, that kind of thing. But there are other things. I don't really have somebody I can talk with about it, but I can talk about it with my wife. Yeah. And so that's really the goal of this question, is just to be able to talk about not just the joys, but also what's been tough for you this week.
Well, and again, I think it gets back to the why. Why is that challenging? And if it's a repetitive challenge, I know there's been seasons where the challenges were repetitive. And that also helps you to know this is something that my spouse is really struggling with right now, whether that's work-related or relational or family or any of those things. It is helpful to know this is something that is hard for my spouse. And it's not, because the other piece of that is, again, we don't necessarily show that in public or in, you know, just kind of our day-to-day goings on. So it's, I may not know something was really hard for him. But the fact that he can say that helps me to know, hey, this is something that happened on whatever day of the week. I didn't even know it. And I'm really glad to be able to step in and just, give him a hug. Or
You're the safe space.
I'm glad for that.
But again, it's just about getting to know, because the things that are hard for me are very often not the same things that are hard for Andrew.
Right.
And so that can get down into the heart of, why are certain things challenging for me that are not challenging for him? How am I wired relationally and interpersonally and that kind of thing, where there are things that I face that he can help to just be a friend and challenge me and that kind of thing, where, maybe that wouldn't be something that would be hard for him.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. I think as guys too, we have to be careful, because when we hear something hard or challenging that our wife may share, they may not want us to fix it.
That's exactly what I was about to say, because sometimes I will say, I do need your input. I need you to help me fix it. And then other times I will start and I say, I just need you to listen to this.
Yeah. Be an ear, because we like to try to fix things, and it's not always the best thing, whenever that happens. We talk about that. Claire and I talk about that, and and I have to ask sometimes, is this something you want me to really help you with, or because sometimes we don't have a crystal ball, right? And so you just have to ask that question: is this something you want me to help you with, or I just want to be an ear and just be a support?
Maybe write that one in underneath.
Yes.
Do you want help with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is amazing, though. Sometimes, I find this to be the case for me, at least. Sometimes just having talked about it, it is just like, okay, well, that's all I need. I just needed to talk about it.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel much better about it, just having said what I felt about that.
It's a pressure valve.
It is kind of a pressure valve, and again, this is really not a gripe session, and you're not looking to your spouse to be your licensed professional counselor in this moment, but
Right.
It is just a way to say, this has been heavy on me this week, and I just need to talk it out.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to question number 4. Keri, introduce that one.
Number 3?
3, sorry.
Number 3, let's go to number 3.
Skip it.
This one, honestly, kind of always would make me nervous when I'd get to it. What can I do for you this week? Because in my mind, I already do so much. And that's one of my love languages, is acts of service. So that's how I love Russ. So does this make either one of you nervous when you're asking the other person, what can I do for you this week? Do you kind of brace yourself for the big things? Or how's that play out?
Amy is low maintenance as a person. So no, I never get nervous about that question. And she's very good about, I know she does not want to burden, me in any way, and I don't want to burden her in any way either. So I don't feel that from her. I could understand where, you might feel a little nervous asking that question, but I think for us, this is just an opportunity to think about the week that's upcoming and talk about what's going on in each of our lives and our schedule, and just say, okay, is there something that I could do, that I could come alongside and help to ease your burden in some way? Amy has a commitment this week on an evening, and so I'm going to watch the kids for her. That's something that I can do to help her this week. She is coming to a podcast with me today. That's
Wow.
something she can do to help me this week, right? So those are the types of things that we just talk about. Here's what's coming up. It might be I'm asking her to come with me to do something, or it might be, I just need a little bit of extra space on Friday morning because I need to read something extra. And so if you can kind of help me protect some time, there's all kinds of things. But it's really just about bearing one another's burdens.
Yeah.
And it helps you to know, okay, let's say my love language is acts of service, but yours is words of affirmation. And you just say to me, would you just
Give
tell
me
me
a
your,
hug.
yeah, just give me a hug. So, if the what can I do for you this week consistently is something that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, then maybe your spouse is receiving love in a way that you weren't thinking to offer it. So,
Yeah.
And a lot of times it ends up not being anything that's really huge.
No.
And it's like, oh yeah, I can give you a hug.
Claire gets excited when I unload the dishwasher.
Yep.
You know, it's a big deal. So I always remember that. You know,
Without
especially
then saying, "Hey, look what I did."
hey, da-da, there it is.
Well, and that's another thing. We've actually talked about this before, that we've noticed that our love languages have changed over the years. And so, you know, whereas mine is and still consistently is quality time, I think acts of service, as we've had all of these children, has also crept up the ladder. So things like, I'll come in our room and he'll have all the laundry done, or you know, the kids he's had them pick up all their stuff and I didn't even have to think about it. That didn't used to be something that was important to me, but at this point, with 6 people in a house, I feel that like, oh,
That's like a bouquet of roses.
yeah. So I think that also helps you to know, well, maybe my spouse's love languages are changing a little bit.
Different seasons.
Yeah.
You know, that you go through. For sure. All right, we're getting near the end here. Let's go to question number 4. It's a very important question. How can I pray for you this week? And I really, you know, when you pray with your spouse, just hearing what's on their heart and mind is so rich and so important. And that's why they caution that as when you date, you know, hey, you know, but because it is very intimate, and it's really, there are things that I find out from Claire by hearing her prayers that I didn't know. And so as y'all approach this, what's some ways that y'all approach this question?
I think it kind of goes along with what can I do for you? It is a way to look ahead at what's coming up in the week and just know, okay, I know what was challenging for you this week. What are you looking at in the week ahead? Where can I pray for you? Maybe there is some kind of a big meeting coming up, or, you know, maybe I have a lot on my plate this week and I might get stressed or something like that. So it's a way of looking ahead and saying, where are the places that I can pray for God to really strengthen you?
It helps us also to be watching for God's answers in that throughout the week, and that might show up next week in our conversation. What brought you joy this week? Hey, we prayed about this thing and God answered.
Right.
And that brought me joy, you know, and it's always good for follow-up conversation. Amy's probably more consistent on that side than I am, to say, hey, that thing that you've been praying for, here is how that has been going,
right.
You know? And I'm very fortunate in that I married a woman of prayer. And so I know she's praying for me. And it's a blessing to know that my wife is praying for me about these things that I share with her. You know, we do pray at the end of our conversation. So I think that's a very important thing to say. We don't just say, okay, I'll pray for you. We're actually going to, at the end of the conversation, we're going to stop and pray about whatever the thing is that we shared. So, you know, I've got a meeting coming up this week. I need wisdom for that meeting. Well, by the end of that conversation, we will stop, and it's not going to, you know, I don't want people to think that this is like more spiritual than it is. It's not like we're on our knees, you know, praying in tongues for an hour. It's, we briefly pray for the thing that was asked for. Sure. And it's very simple, but it's a regular way to at least have one time a week that we are praying together just as a couple.
Well, awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode, and I want to thank the Hébert, and I'm asking you guys, come back next week and let's talk through 5, 6, 7, and 8. And
sounds great.
Thank you. Keri, you come back too.
I think I will. Thanks, Brandon.
Appreciate you being here. So make sure that you follow us on, we are available on Spotify. We're available on Apple and Google Podcasts, and obviously as well the Mobberly website. And we want to make sure that you share it with your friends. If this is something that these marriage questions could really help them or encourage them, I mean, it's great for everybody because it's maintenance. It's marriage maintenance, and you're just getting more connected with your spouse. So we want to encourage you to do that, and we'll be back next week to handle the next questions. Thanks for listening.